All right. Woohoo. It's great to be here for this little lunch and learn webinar, or breakfast for those of you on the West Coast, or maybe dinner for those of you in Europe. Hi, everybody. Thanks for setting aside a few minutes that will get you back hours. This is the Crush Your Calendar webinar. It's for professionals who feel they can't get done what they need to because their calendar is too full, their inbox is too full. My goal for this training is simple. I want to address 3 simple misconceptions that you can get your time back. You address these simple misconceptions, you'll get your time back. First, a couple of rules. Please engage in the chat. It's going to make it better for everybody. Actually, right now, if you could let others know what you're thinking or where you're from, what line of business you're in, just type that in the chat. It'd be great to see that. Rule number 2 is let's behave as if we were sitting across the table from each other. I'm just asking for your undivided attention. We only have 30 minutes together, and I want the most for you. So I'd ask if you could, put your phone down, stop driving, whatever the case may be. These insights are from 20 plus years of owning and crushing my own calendar. And this webinar, I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to clear your calendar up. You're going to free up time despite impossible odds and an overwhelming amount of meetings. You might be skeptical. You might be thinking, this will never work. I'm different. We have unique challenges or a tough work culture. That's fair, but I want to share a couple examples that I was recently involved with. Like Jim, who was working 60-hour weeks. He had no open places on his calendar. Together, we sat down, we found 20 hours, gave that time back to him. Another one, Angie, she couldn't get her head above water with the relentless invites and emails being sent her way. Suddenly, she found 2 hours a day to focus on the things she wanted to, like developing her team leaders. This will work for anyone who uses a phone or calendar to plan their days and weeks. In fact, I haven't found someone who couldn't do this. You name the industry or position, and we've found success there. It doesn't matter. Education, finance, software, manufacturing, healthcare, nonprofit, and more. They've all done it. And I take my own medicine. 20 years ago, I was completely overwhelmed by an extremely demanding job. I had 3 children at home. I had volunteer work that my wife and I wanted to be involved in. Every single day of the week was packed. I stayed up late every night. I was up early every morning. I didn't work out. My health dropped. My friends were distant. In fact, the only people who were happy were those that I was doing things for. At the time, I felt important and proud of my effort, but I was on the edge of burnout. Looking back now, it was way too much, and I regret having lived like that. I am glad I did change and have been able to enjoy life much more the past 2 decades than I did before. Now, I'm an expert and a consultant on transformation. Transformation is a major change in the way things are done. Many people need transformation of their time management techniques because it's not giving them what they want. They're not getting able to spend the time on the things they want to. Now, time, as we know, is the only currency that everyone in the world is given the same amount of. And how we manage that time determines what we can do and what we can achieve. Now, a little caveat here. Today's webinar is not going to cover work-life balance. You have to decide how many hours is work and how many hours is non-work. This will be how to free up work hours. And then you can decide how to redeploy them. I've seen too many times people becoming time slaves to others, which prevents them from becoming the person they can be. This Crush Your Calendar webinar is to help you get back time so that you can be who you were meant to be. Okay, so right now, by following these exact processes, I've slashed my work week down to less than 15 hours while still delivering high value everywhere in life and still having margin for the unexpected. Just yesterday, I was able to go watch my two granddaughters when my daughter texted me in the morning. Today, I took my wife's watch charger to where she works so it wouldn't die on her. I had the margin to be able to do that because I managed my time very distinctly, very clearly. But before I get into the mind shifts that I had to make in order for that to happen, I'm going to make a few assumptions if you're on this webinar. Number one is I'm going to assume that you're a professional whose daily calendar and time is crazy. Maybe you barely have time to plan for the day, let alone the week or month or quarter. You didn't even know if you would have time for this webinar. Maybe people fill your calendars with meetings as soon as they find an open slot. And many times, many days, you have double bookings or you run late from meeting to meeting. You feel like when you leave work, it's never done because you didn't have time to do what you wanted. Your inbox is never empty, it's never all red. If this feels like you, put a Y in the chat. I'd like to see. If those of you feel like this, just please put a Y in the chat. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, a lot of you. Okay, next is I'm going to assume that you're a full-time professional, that you have more interest in life than just work, and that there are things on your wish list that seem impossible to get to. Okay? Now, using these webinar strategies, I have freed people to successfully spend time with their families every day, to be at games, even coach. I've got people on that vacation that they've been waiting to take but couldn't get to. I've shown them how exactly what they've missing, and I've lit the path for them to actually get there. How? By taking each of these people, each of my clients through a very specific process. I was able to get them to free up 10 plus hours a week, every week, ongoing. And if you stick with me to the end of this video, I'm going to give you access to a free infographic with all of the points on it, formatted for your phone for easy reference. Now, before I dive into all that, I want to share that I was once a guy drowning in calendar mayhem. I was feeling professional, personal, social, and family pressure. Now, I went from 60 to 0, and now I do whatever I want. I got promoted. I was the unofficial photographer for all my kids' sports. I directed plays and short films. I earned a master's degree. I competed in multiple Ironman races. I became a master angler. Now, many of you have worked at 1, 2, or even 5 jobs in your professional career. I've been in 17 different industries. I've personally worked with dozens of companies, hundreds of leaders. There have been failures, there have been successes. It has been a learning journey. In total, my close circle of friends have seen transformation in the hundreds. We're talking thousands of data points. Now, I'm distilling that knowledge down for you today into 30 minutes. Now, you may have more questions than answers. That's okay. My goal for you today is to be able to crush your calendar, to be able to get precious time back. Now, some of you might be doubting this. Perhaps you have limiting beliefs that stop you from believing this. I'd love to see what you have, those limiting beliefs. Just type them in the chat right now. Be honest. Trust me, I've heard them all. Go ahead, type them in the chat. Limiting beliefs. I'd like to see some of those pop up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, look, here's exactly what I do with each of my clients to get these results. It involves 3 misconceptions related to the busy professional's time. Okay. And these are big ones. Number 1 is that there is no time to think. Now, what are the symptoms for that? The daily pressures of work are piled up. You're unable to think about next quarter or next year. Virtually all of your time is spent handling tasks that need to be completed ASAP. Maybe you don't have time for lunch. Every day is a whirlwind of activity. Some days you may feel like you have no time for yourself. The misconception is that I'm too busy to stop and think. But the actual issue is you're too busy not to stop and think. One of my colleagues who I work with, when asked what he does, says that he gets paid to make people think. Now, as a transformational expert, he downplays and oversimplifies it. But essentially, that is exactly what he is doing. He gets people to stop and think, and then he gets phenomenal results. You need time to think. Every week, I encounter individuals, work units, and organizations that have fallen into the trap of daily crazy. I hear excuses like, we have to change the tires on the bus while we're driving, or sometimes they're even more extreme and they say, we have to change the wings on the plane while we're flying. Everyone is saying the same thing. We're too busy to stop and fix the problems that are keeping us from doing what we need to do. And while the reality is that you can drive on a flat tire, there are many YouTube videos showing that drivers that have gone too far on a flat tire with devastating results, fires, crazy things, no wheels, sparks flying. There's no structural way to work on a plane while it's flying. In both of these cases, flat tire, or you have some problem with an airplane, a maintenance stop is required. And depending on the level of repair required, more or less time is needed. But somehow, when it comes to work, people just accept that they're driving on a flat tire and think that things are going to be okay. They're not. Now, I've never had a client tell me, Adam, this was a complete waste of time. In fact, the thing I hear the most is, I'm glad I trusted the process. Even the most ardent opponents, when ripped away from their important work, have had tremendous results. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've heard, I've been dealing with this problem for X number of years, and then we just fixed it in a couple of days. Giving yourself time to think may be the most valuable gift that you can give yourself this year. You have to make time for you to think every day. This means making time on your calendar. Of course, that can't happen without taking a couple of steps. And the first step is directly related to the next misconception. But I'd like to know if you're struggling with having time to think, put a 1 in the chat. I'd like to see those people that are struggling with just even having time to think. Yes, thank you. Oh, man. Okay, so let's get to the second misconception. The second misconception is that being busy is good. Now, here are the symptoms. Your calendar is completely booked during your work hours. Increasingly, people are booking meetings during times that you would have not considered work hours. When people ask how life is, you say busy. Colleagues or friends often have to schedule with you several weeks ahead. You constantly ask people to reschedule due to higher priority items popping up. Maybe you don't show up to meetings you accepted. Your calendar looks insane. The misconception is that busier is better or that busy is good because busy means I'm important. Bill Gates had a tremendous quote that I heard recently. He said, it's not a proxy of seriousness that you filled every minute of your calendar. Now, I've found the primary reason for over inviting people to meetings is that they want to be fully inclusive, but the reality is you're not needed and everybody's not needed in every meeting. It's actually being disrespectful to invite too many people to a meeting. So let me share a typical pattern of what I see right now with leaders. And this can be at any level of the organization. Everyone is asking you to follow up to make sure something is done right. Everyone on your team invites you to meetings. You think if I'm not part of it, it may not get done well, or I'll miss something important. You need to build your team to have those capabilities, not to rely on you. And you need to trust that the right people will communicate to you. John Maxwell taught me something many years ago that I've had to lean on heavily to free my calendar up. And that's this. Anything that somebody else can do 80% as well as you should be doing that task. If we think that we have to be at everything or to do everything to be done right, maybe we have a control problem. And good leaders don't have control issues. Now, I realize this. COVID has unleashed a plague of virtual meetings on us. And somehow meetings got worse with Teams and Zoom. Now, after auditing hundreds of meetings with thousands of employees, I actually found that the vast majority of attendees did not need or want to be there. So this problem is fixed when we know exactly what things we should be working on, and we only accept time on our calendar for those things. I'd like to ask a question. How many of you can recall at least one time in the past week that you attended a meeting you didn't need to attend? Put a 2 in the chat if that's something that's true for you. If you attended a meeting just in the past week, maybe it's even in the past day, that you did not need to attend. Yeah, I see that a lot. Let's go to the third misconception. This misconception is that email is your friend, that you could not survive without email. So here's a couple of symptoms. Your inbox gets way backed up, and then it takes hours for you to go through. I heard one leader this past week tell me it could take him up to 6.5 hours in a day just to go through his email. Yeah, we're changing that. You're carbon copied on way too many emails just in case you need the information. You find yourself trying to manage your inboxes all hours of the day. You find that even typing a simple response can take a lot of effort, that you want to word it just right, that you want to send out the right amount of information. You also find that people communicate to you using multiple methods. So I call it email, but it could be text, it could be in chat, the team chat, it could be an email. And different people expect different response times, but they're all being randomly used. So this misconception that email, chat, or text is your friend, no, the real problem is that we've let these methods run our life and now we're a victim of its abuse. What do we have to do? We have to call the inbox. This means retraining the key people who communicate with you. I worked for an organization that had a brilliant communication policy, and we rarely had coworkers or bosses clogging up our inboxes. They designated different methods of configuring the subject line so people knew how the email needed to be addressed, even without having to open it up. And they reduced inbox traffic by over half. Now, I've used a similar approach for teams and formalizing communication methods that work for everyone, share and request information, and are the most respectful of each member's time. Now, if you feel underwater with all of your communication tools, your email, your chat, and your text, maybe you put a 3 in the chat. Let's see who's dealing with that. Yeah, a lot of people are having trouble with that area. So right now, I'd like to give a bonus misconception. Okay, this is not part of the 3 that I have, but I wanted to talk about this. You have to do your best work when it's expected of you. That is the misconception. Okay. The actual reality is that you have a best time of the day for your performance. And that time should be blocked for your most important, not your most trivial tasks. What I find so many times is that the day as the day goes on, each of those hours are considered equitable by others, and they'll book stuff, they'll ask you to attend things, they'll request stuff from you during those times. But you need to be sure that you take your most important time of the day. For some people that's morning, some people that's 6 a.m., for some people that's 10 to 2 p.m., for some people it's noon to 4. I have leaders all the time telling me what their most important time of the day is for them when they're the most productive. And you need to block that time off. You need to take that time and not allow others to ruin your calendar. And you need to focus on those special hours that work best for you to do the things that you need to get done during that time. Okay? Find your best time and put your most important things. Okay? So, what have we talked about? We've talked about the 3 misconceptions. I don't have time to think, that busy is better, and that email is my friend. We've covered why each of those are wrong and what the right way is to think about each of them. I've demonstrated how others have overcame those misconceptions and gained valuable time back. Now, I want to ask this to the people who are listening. Who thinks that they can do this? That they're ready to go deeper on these things right now? And the reason I ask this is because you have 2 options. You can treat this like any other webinar and do nothing or apply what you've learned, or you can do option number 2 and you can make the decision to take immediate action. Okay? This webinar is your opportunity to take action today. All right? I'm introducing an online workshop that will hone your calendar to perfection. I work through each of my 5 steps with your real calendar issues. Okay. My goal is to free up 25% of your time in one workshop. Now, if you're ready, I've set aside time to speak with you privately, one-on-one, about how you can apply these principles in your life and gain these rewards. Okay, this call's not for everyone. Some people will say, "Hey, it's going to take too much time, or I don't have any money. I'm not going to be able to do that." But this is who this is for. This is for those who are serious about systematically finding time on their calendar from now moving forward. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because these are principles that I've learned, that I've helped hundreds or thousands of people learn. And I want you to get clarity and make the best decision for you. So during the one-on-one call, that's exactly what we're going to find out. We're going to discover that if we do work together, what are the exact step-by-step process that I'm going to use? Okay, so if this is something that you're interested in, you can go to my website, adammward.com, and you can book time with me today on the schedule page, and I will set up that 15-minute phone call that we can talk and figure out what that's going to be like. Thanks for joining this webinar today. I trust that it's given you some great things to think about, and I look forward to talking with you soon.